In 1983, Yamaha launched the new RZ350 as an unspoken successor of the Road 350 lineup. The motorcycle gained popularity and success as a great value for money deal. With the perfect blend of good looks and a lot of power, the RZ350 became worthy of a Kenny Roberts badging. Kenny Roberts was the name that came to everyone's mind when they thought of a successful café racer. Sadly, the bike also became known as the last of the two-stroke engine motorcycles in the United States. This is where the magic of the Japanese truly came to life. Normally, when we talk about a bike's engine and road performance, there is usually a set tone of whether it is good or bad. However, here 2 points are equally opposed to each other. The element that makes this bike's performance so good is the reason behind its equally negative point. The RZ350 featured a two-stroke liquid-cooled engine with parallel twin cylinders, and it has a 347cc capacity. The engine not seen later in the US except in dirt and motocross bikes. Looking back at it now, it is one of the greatest motorcycles of all time. The Reed intake water-cooled engine made 52 horsepower at 8,750 revolutions per minute. The difference in a two-stroke engine is just what the name suggests. Modern engines are generally four-stroke, meaning the pistons would complete two up-down movements in one cycle. In a two-stroke engine, the pistons would only perform one compression and decompression movement in one cycle. This way, the delivery of power was more spontaneous. You will get less top speed, but better acceleration. The bike had a standard conventional telescopic fork in the front and a monoshock suspension in the back. In terms of braking, the bike had twin disc brakes on the front wheel with a single disc in the rear. The tubular frame connected the steering head with the swingarm pivot point, which resulted in better handling. The aforementioned 52 horsepower delivery is on par with today's 400 class sports bikes, which is quite an achievement for the 350 class offering from Yamaha. When equipped with OE catalyst exhausts, the bike finished the quarter-mile drag in 13.19 seconds at 99.22 miles per hour. The RZ350 is one of the most gorgeous motorcycles ever made. It was pretty significant in terms of how we picture a sports bike from the 80s. A narrow body with an exposed engine, minimalistic yet sporty shapes of the fuel tank, and the steel perimeter frame ran across the body surrounding the engine. This shape caught people's eyes quicker and stayed on them for longer, and the sporty red and white color scheme was the cherry on top. The Kenny Roberts edition came in yellow, white, black Yamaha Speedblock livery, and it was a delightful sight as well. There is a metallic fender at the front, although Yamaha left the rear tire exposed. The 18-inch wheels feature 3 pairs of twin spokes, and they kept the belly pan to a small size with the corresponding paint job. But the part that takes the prime spot here is the iconic front visor with flat headlights. People still remember the first time they ever saw that front end, and how it got stuck in their heads because it was so simple and unique at the same time. Like most other sports bikes, the RZ350 came equipped with a single seat body, but it had an angle that would put the passenger seat at a slightly higher position, something that is found on bikes of the current century. With all this power, there was one glaring issue. The difference between the optimal performance at 8,750 revolutions per minute and the average level of performance at lower RPM was too high. Also, the power band of the bike was dangerously thin. This meant that at peak level performance the engine will provide more immediate and unexpected propulsion rather than a gradual increase in speed. This sudden thrust would throw people off guard and cause loss of control or traction. There have been cases where people fell off the back because of this. Ultimately, the whole situation led to the reputation of being called the Widowmaker. Yamaha didn't turn a blind eye to this. To mitigate this effect, they quickly developed their version of a two-stroke power valve system, called the Yamaha Power Valve System, or YPVS for short. In simple terms, the system detects how far open the throttle is, and then electronically varies the height of the exhaust port. This allowed the bike to have a higher amount of torque at lower revolution per minute, while also maintaining the same old higher RPM peak power. So the bike became faster, and the engine became gruntier at a lower rev range with the same thrilling performance at a higher range. But it was too late. This incident was an eye-opener for many. Ergo, the upcoming models from many manufacturers started coming in a 4-stroke engine, and newer 2-stroke bikes were never seen again, at least not legally. In 1986, Yamaha decided to not bother dealing with the RZ350 emissions problems, and cancelled the bike in America and kept selling it in the global market. A popular model in the club racing scene, the RZ350 remains a significant chapter many would remember over the years. A great bike that had the potential to become one of the all-time greats if it were not for a major overlooked flaw, along with some minor ones. A lot of new technology has found its way onto the RZ, but some currently fashionable features aren't on the bike and aren't missed. The forks are simple 35mm telescopic units. There are no damping adjustments, no anti-dives. Air caps are fitted as the only means of adjustment. The linkage-operated single-shock rear suspension is just as simple. No air fitting or damping knobs are installed. Instead, there's only a remote preload adjustment under the right-hand side cover with a toothed rubber belt from the remote adjuster to the shock spring. But the suspension is simple and effective anyway. There's enough travel to keep the wheels on the pavement and the rider in the saddle, and there's no weave or wobble. The frame geometry and lightweight combine to make a quick steering bike, but one that's not twitchy. This is a compact motorcycle with all the parts well tucked up. It's easy to lean way over but not easy to scrape things. Braking performance is just as admirable. Opposed piston calipers are used on all 3 disc brakes. There's no annoying sponginess at the adjustable handlebar lever, just strong braking. If anything, the brakes sometimes feel stronger than normal because the engine provides virtually no braking of its own. You often come into a corner faster than you expect, clamp on the brakes, and feel some kind of shock waves running through the bike as it shudders down to a slower speed.